I created this podcast to have a voice and to encourage other people to use their voice because it's powerful. Welcome to Ridley Speaks. I am your host, Carlos Ridley. And in this episode, I'm going to talk about why I created this podcast and subsequently what I hope to accomplish as we push forward through using this platform to give people the opportunity to listen, think, take a step back, and decide if their voice will be heard or not. And I'm going to use several different categories to kind of help entertain conversation about a lot of things. I'm going to use subjects such as judgment, fear, stereotyping, race, racism, and then how do those things reflect in our society that causes things to happen, how people look at other people, communities, and how does our voices, your voice, can impact that. And furthermore, what the real issue would be is how your voice is so powerful, but you're either afraid to use it to speak out, or you don't know how to use it and speak out. And so what I plan on achieving is being a voice, no pun intended, to those that either don't know how to use it because of fear or don't use it because they don't know how to. Now, I'm not a master at it. And the reason why I wanted to use this platform is to break out of the shell of I don't want to respond because it's controversial. I don't want to offend someone. Yada, yada, yada. Making excuses and hiding under the table. And that's so not me. But at times when we are around people who are not afraid to use their voices and they continually voice their opinions about everything and anything. And we all know who those people are, right? They're not afraid. They say what they have to say. And they sometimes, not all, sometimes use it in a way to suppress someone else's voice or to scare them into not saying nothing because it might differ than what that other person is actually saying. So I decided a while back that I was going to be respectfully blunt as relates to using my voice, specifically if it's in an environment where other people, whether it's coworkers, colleagues, family, friends, strangers, if they say something that I don't agree with or have a different opinion, not to be afraid to share that opinion because the other person or persons aren't afraid to share their opinions. So when I look out on the landscape and I decided to start a podcast, I was like, man, there are so many podcasts about everything. You can find a podcast for just about everything. It's so saturated. But then again, I didn't want to let that fear of the zillions and millions and billions of podcasts out there prevent me from taking advantage of the platform to use my voice to speak and to also give those out there who feel maybe the same way I felt in their voice having impact, but just not being confident enough to use it. And so that's my vision. That's my mission, is to encourage people to use their voice and not be afraid, because your voice has meaning and it has impact, and it can have impact on this world. You just have to be confident in using it and standing up to adversity if that follows you having a voice or a response to something. Because you can use your voice and there might be some backlash off of it. And so when I'm talking about categories that I want to bring up during future episodes, it will be things that ruffles the feathers a little. As an example, and this just is an example, I mentioned judgment. Human beings are masters at judging other human beings about anything. And sometimes it's not intentional, and sometimes it is intentional. Sometimes you could be sitting in a place like a grocery store parking lot, and there's people walking around trying to sell stuff kind of off the street. Let's use an example of face masks for COVID. And maybe the first thing that comes to your mind is, look at these people. Well, as soon as you go in to look at these people, you're in a mode of judgment. I know this because I just did it the other day, and I had to stop myself and say, whoa, I just judged these people. I didn't even get into the full mode, but I was on the tip on the line of judging because they are out here trying to make $1. And the reverse from that would be, man, look at these people out here trying to make $1. They're doing whatever they can do to make $1. And by the way, they're selling face masks, which are going to protect people. So everybody does it. But at what detriment to society? And even as something as small as what I just mentioned, it is still judgment, and all that does is grow. So we'll talk about things like that, and we'll discuss how our voices, using them or not, can impact things like judgment. There are a lot of issues going on in our world today. And that's a statement that is used almost every day, every month, every year. There's so much going on in our world today. There's always something going on in this world. Specifically, there's always something going on in the United States of America. And there's always something or some things that are causing friction in our country. And the year of 2020 has been a roller coaster of activity that has caused people to be a certain way, act a certain way, feel a certain way, and many voices have rang loud. Communities have used their voices. Politicians have used their voices. Athletes have used their voices. And it's important that those voices are heard, but at the same time, if there are individuals or communities, etc., that disagree with some of the talking points that the groups I just mentioned made, it's okay to use your voice to voice your opinions or your thoughts in a way that invokes meaningful conversation. And meaningful conversations help create and evolve solutions. And don't we need more solutions now than just talk? We consistently talk about change. When my own opinion is trying to change, again, keep the word on change, things or people, is hard to do because people are set in their ways or they're set in an ideology. But what we're really talking about is transformation. Transformation of point of view. Transformation of a mindset that once was. And speaking up to that, regardless of how you feel about a situation or an issue. You might think the sky is green, and another person might think the sky is teal. And then there starts the friction. But because the other person sees the sky as teal and you see it as green, the other person might not want to challenge you or say anything to you because that might hurt your feelings or you might attack them. Or vice versa. They think the sky is teal, you think it's green, and you don't want to offend them or say anything because either you don't know how to talk or speak to them about it, or you're just scared to do it for whatever reason. And my hope is that we can tackle that during these podcasts. Thus is why I named this podcast Ridley Speaks. It is me speaking. It is me not being afraid to say what I feel if I disagree with points of view as it relates to politics, religion, race, sports, family, anything and everything. And my hope is that will create discussions about these podcasts that will create dialogue between listeners to bring up topics, to discuss, to not be afraid to speak out. Speaking out through voice is one way. Speaking out through social media is another. Speaking out in a podcast, or maybe you've been thinking about doing a podcast to do similar things or have similar issues or have similar speaking points. And I hope to bridge that for anybody that is looking to open up the microphone of their voice and to speak and be heard and not live in fear of what speaking out may mean to you or to your family or to your coworkers or to your friends. I've voiced my opinion about several things in the past few weeks to friends and former colleagues. And I was met back with a backlash of responses, only for asking a question and making a couple comments. And yes, it had to do with politics, which is a very, very hot button anytime there's an election year. It intensifies. People are more on edge, and understandably, because people vote on both sides of the fence. One side is in fear. Actually, both sides are in fear of their ideologies being taken away if one or the other side wins, which in my opinion is totally ludicrous, because we as individuals actually hold the key and the power. So I am very excited about this podcast. I'm very excited about the listeners interacting, engaging in conversations, whether they agree or disagree. I'm looking to move the needle on this society and really being a pillar or a mover of transformation within individuals and then ultimately on our society. And I think you can help me get there by stepping up to the mic, pun intended, and being heard, regardless of what you feel or how you may vote or what religion you might have. That part's not important to me. Whether you're white, black, Asian, Hispanic, gay, straight, transgender, I don't care. I want voices to be heard, but I want them to be heard because you have stepped up and you have broken away from the fear. And you speak. Regardless of what comes back, you are no longer afraid to speak. And that is my goal. That is my mission. That is my vision. And I'm going to stay true to that. You hold me accountable. That's good. I need it. Need your support. So like this podcast, subscribe, share, make comments, and let's let our voices be heard and not live in fear of it being heard for any reason. Have a great day. And thank you for listening. Ridley Speaks.